Are you kidding me? Oh! Ever since I got my first mountain bike when I was 10 years old, has it been a dream to go to a bike park. I spent my early mountain biking days watching New World Disorder 1 through 10 on repeat, learning from the greats of freeriding while feasting on the rock, punk, and rap-heavy soundtracks laid over footage of road gaps and flow trails on 26-inch aluminium bikes.
The earth starts to rumble.
Fast forward to 2023 and I found myself planning a 2.5-month Euro trip, including a stop at one of the great alpine bike parks. For 10 days in the middle of the trip, Georgia would jet off to London to see her best friends, and I would meet a friend in France to watch a Springbok Rugby World Cup game, followed by a week in Saalbach in the Austrian Alps. I left Bordeaux in France the morning after the Springbok game for a 6:30 flight to Nice and another to Vienna. But Vienna, in the northeast, is nowhere near Saalbach in the Midwest. 3 trains between Vienna, Salzburg, Schwarzach and Zalmsier should have solved that problem. But apparently a layover of 15 minutes is not long enough and I missed the second train and also desperately needed to pee. I rushed to platform 7 for the Salzburg-Zalmsier bus and caught it minutes later, still full of pee and the bus full of local commuters. That bus stopped, I shit you not, 84 times in 150 minutes, and at none of these stops could I alight for the water closet. Eventually, a rainy Zalmsier loomed into view and just one bus remained, which brought me to the promised land. I was grumpy, underslept and missing my girlfriend, until I got into my Saalbach apartment and I was a changed man. I would argue ski resorts in summer are at their most special. Fields of endless, deep green, snow-capped peaks in the distance and trails, gondolas and ski lifts poking through the trees. Fresh alpine air righted the wrongs of the 14-hour travel day before, and when I woke and saw a light drizzle, I knew the first thing I should do was trail run. Briefly consulting my paper map, I embarked straight from the apartment and up the nearby valley, encountering early on some majestic single tracks along the Spielberg-Bach River, and the gradients meant I would not do all that much running. The climb continued to the famous Spielberg House restaurant, with a sign proclaiming it the home of Valentina Höll, downhill mountain biking champion, and I knew I was in the right place. At the top, my single track home was closed on account of urgent forestry, and instead I continued up to the top of the Koolmeis lift and rode it down. If ever there was a bastard climb, it was that one. A relentless 900 meters over just 9 Ks, and my legs were crying out when I got into the lift. I'd stocked the fridge with schnitzels, pasta and other carbs, so it was a couple of hours at home before I set off to Bikefürst to hire a bike. No rest for the wicked. With lunch scarcely down the hatch, Yannick from Bikefürst had rented me a Mondraker Super Foxy R, a long travel enduro bike which I figured would do the trick, and a full set of safety gear including knee pads, spine, shoulder and elbow protection, and a full face helmet. The rest of my gear, including gloves, baggies, bibs and cycling shoes, I'd lugged all the way from Africa. Worth it for 6 days out of 74? Probably not. On that day 1, I explored the southern side of the valley via the Schattberg Express lift, starting with the famous Hackelberg Trail, but with sunset approaching I figured I'd need a trail pointing roughly in the direction of home and not the neighboring Hinterglemm. So I left Hackelberg and found X-Line, a black trail, in other words reserved only for the most skillful riders, but in any case the only way down, and which I thought would end right near my apartment. How bad could it be? Boy, I was out of my depth. Alone, on a new bike,
hair-raising stuff, oh my hat,
on a steep and technical trail used mainly by experienced enduro and downhill riders. I battled my way down, wishing away the cramp from my fingers, and halfway down suddenly arrived on a segment of woodwork I've subsequently dubbed the roller coaster. Scary as it was to hit something at that gradient and speed, it's been locked firmly in the memory bank as a top 3 biking event. It was day 3 of 6 when Yannick suggested I hike to Stemmerkogel, one of the area's higher peaks. So I packed a lunch in my hydration pack, donned my Bo Miles hat from Decathlon, and hopped into the Schattberg Express gondola once again. I knew we had the running paradise of Madeira in Portugal up next, so I made sure to hike and not run so as to avoid any overuse injuries. I promise I managed to hike the entire outing, not running even once. At over 2,000 meters, the air was cool with a light breeze and the sun shone warmly. Clear-cut single tracks in all directions, happy hikers of all ages, and the 360-degree vista including granite, grass, and snow-capped peaks. On the way down, hiking became too slow. Shock, horror. I had things to do, like reading and gazing into the abyss, so I started running. 1,000 meters that goddamn trail descended, positively rinsing my knees, and I ended up in the small Hinterglemm village next door and got the bus home. Subsequent rides that week revealed other woodwork on Hinterglem's Blue Line, which I hit a few times in the wet. Even the non-wood berms were spectacular. On this series of 3 left-right left-handers on Blue Line, I managed to pull 7 lateral G-forces and pass pilot's training at the same time. Fun is an understatement. The combination of being deep in the mountains on a strange bike with ski lifts removing the pain of ascending and dozens of Ks of manicured single track make for a quite surreal experience. A dream come true just 21 years after my first ride. So Saalbach,
Trail running paradise.
a nightmare to reach affordably, surprisingly cheap to live off groceries once there, and the perfect benchmark for your next summer outdoor adventure trip. Ain't no doubt I'll be back.